my title this year is the same as my title last year. Okay? So, you probably think I'm going to say the same thing, right? Well, guess what? I'm not going to say the same thing. In fact, almost everything that I said last year, I still agree with. With one possible, whoops, come back here. I'm going in circles. With one possible exception. Okay? And that exception was I suggested you start with a Scrum team. Okay, that's actually building product. And in the last year, what have I been doing? Well, I've been working on 2 transitions, one of which was amazing, the other of which is still trying to get out of the starting blocks. And so I've updated my opinions a bit. The other thing which is happening is we hear companies saying, I want to be agile. We hear managers saying, I have a checkbox item in my bonus calculation which says our department or our company needs to be agile. Now, I'd like to give you an example of a good way to become agile. About 3 weeks ago, I had the privilege of listening to Howard Sublett. Howard Sublett is the new Chief Product Owner of the Scrum Alliance. Now, Howard was supposed to be hired as the Chief Executive Officer. And somewhere along the line, they said, well, wait a minute, actually, we want to be an agile company, so why do we have a CEO? That's a very traditional role. And about 3 weeks before he was hired, Howard he got the title Product Owner. And the less guys in the Scrum at Scale guys are trying to figure out if he should call himself Product Owner or Chief Product Owner. I'll let you know when that plays out a little while later. So anyway, I'm at the Experience Agile, and Howard gets up to make a nice little, you're doing just fine, guys. And he talks about his new role at the Scrum Alliance. And he says, well, I've been on the job for 3 weeks. And there's basically 2 things I want to say. The first is we're about transforming the world of work. And the second thing is it's not about the money. And he sat down and everyone applauded. So what did he just do? He communicated a vision. And by the end of the day, people both in the organization and outside of the organization, friends of the organization, rivals of the organization, were already reorienting themselves, self-organizing around a simple, clearly communicated vision. Okay? And the Scrum Alliance has not always been an agile organization. It's been actually very traditionally managed at times, but it's very clear they want to be an organization. Everyone understands the message. Okay? And I think this is what you need. Now, when I say, I want to be agile, we heard this morning, does anybody actually know what that means? And the answer is, well, I'm not really sure. But especially if someone coming from outside the agile community says, oh my God, my neighbors are agile, I got to be agile too. Well, we've got a voyage to take them on. And that's what I want to talk to you about. So in the last year and a half, as I say, I've been involved in 2 transitions. I've also been working with mid-level managers and executives. I call this the leadership circle. We get together on a regular basis and we solve problems. And so I'd like to share some further thoughts about becoming agile. First question. It's not really a statement, it's a question. Where is the customer? Steve Denning has been writing about the age of agile. He talks about a Copernican revolution. Remember Copernicus? Before Copernicus, we thought the Earth was the center of the universe and the sun was out there someplace. And Copernicus actually turned that around and said, well, actually, the Earth rotates around the sun. Well, companies might think that the customers, that everything revolves around them, but actually they revolve around the customers. So when you're thinking about your solutions and making your diagrams, ask yourself, where is the customer? And particularly if you look at a lot of frameworks and scaling frameworks, it's kind of hard to find the customer. So make sure you know where your customer is, because that's where the money really comes from. Now, your manager may have heard about it on the golf course, but the fact is, today's most successful companies are agile. They're not talking about doing agility, they are actually themselves very deeply agile. Not just at the operational level, but also at the strategic level. So let me give you an example. You've probably heard of Amazon, right? Amazon started out as a bookstore. Somewhere along the line, they decided they wanted to be a marketplace. And so not only Amazon, but Amazon's competitors can sell their products there. A little bit further down the road, they realized we could sell our services, that is the actual IT services that we use to operate our bookstore, we can use in our marketplace, we can sell that to other customers. And so they're constantly innovating on their business model, trying out new things. Okay, ever heard of a company called Blue Origin? Okay, they're building rockets. They want to get in the same businesses as Elon Musk. Okay, so there's a huge amount of innovation going on at the business level. This is what Steve Denning calls strategic agility. This is the one that I think is causing most traditional managers the biggest headaches. They say, oh my God, we're getting eaten alive by competitors that are faster than we are. They're small, but that doesn't mean anything. I recently saw a graph of advertising revenue, total global advertising revenue. You know, and it hasn't really changed very much in the last 20 years. I mean, yeah, it's grown with the size of the economy, but basically it's been constant. What's changed is that Google gets most of it now. And the newspapers and other media that used to sell advertising, their revenue pool has shrunk. Okay, we look at Tesla building cars. Now, maybe you saw the article, Tesla is applying extreme manufacturing, the principles, whether they explicitly do it or whether they just reinvent it or not, that I don't know. But in fact, they're innovating very, very fast. And they went from being poo-pooed by the industry, now they're selling 20,000 cars a month. Now, that's just in the US. Now, 20,000 cars a month, that's a very significant market share. That's enough to make them, I think, the number 4 or number 5 most sold car in America. And now you're one of the traditional manufacturers, BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, whichever one it is. How long does it take you to get a new car to the market? Yeah, probably about 10 years. Okay, and you've just lost 20 or 30% of your market share. That's going to be a long 10 years if you're still moving that way. So the key message here is it's not the big fish eating the small fish, it's the fast fish eating the slow ones. Now let's take this down to earth. How many of you have been to London? Anyone here been to London? Okay. Anyone taken the DLR, the Dockland Yards Railway, I think it's called? Okay. This is one of the most amazing railroads I've ever seen. It is completely computer controlled. You walk past the entrance, you flash your credit card, it goes beep. You get on the train, the doors open, the doors close. It tells you when it's coming down to the minute. You get off the train, take your credit card out again, beep, it books it. And it's cheap, much cheaper than if you buy a card. Okay? Really a product from the 21st century. But what is it like to drive that train? Ka-chong, ka-chong, ka-chong. You're being jolted around left and right, and you're going about 30 kilometers an hour. So they've got this 21st, almost 22nd century technology train running on tracks that feel like they haven't been maintained in 100 years. So here is it. When you're talking about being agile, every development project has got 2 products. The first product is the product that you think you're building. The second product is the organization that builds the product. Okay, so we've got the train and you've got the track. Can you have a high-speed train on low-speed track? As a manager, as a leader of the organization, you're responsible for the track. You're creating that high-performance organization to support the high-performance team. Now, this one is probably my most important message to a leader. Start with yourself. And this is, by the way, that point number 9 previously. I said previously, start with the team and then get the management thing going as quickly as possible. No, start with yourself. Being agile is really very easy, but it's no one is going to have to change more in the organization than the top leader. Agility starts in the head. That applies to each individual person, but that also applies to the organization. And then it's not about you. So as soon as you get other people on board, following your agile example, celebrate them and make it clear that it's about them and not about you. I was stunned by the effect of Howard Sublett's statement. We're here to transform the world at work. All of a sudden, everybody knew what they should do. So you're bringing a vision, not a plan. And this is, by the way, for your managers, this is probably the hardest thing for them to do. Because what have they been doing up till now? They've been making plans. They've been solving problems. They've been figuring out what to do. and their mission is now changing. They're now trying to, as a manager, you're now trying to activate the collective intelligence in your organization. Now, I would like to reassure the managers. How many of you are managers, by the way? You're probably saying, oh my God, my job is changing quite a lot, okay? Now, one thing which I'd like to reassure you about, there is still a role for leadership. There are still hierarchies in an organization. They're not bureaucratic, okay? They're very different than probably what you're used to, but you still have the opportunity to shine, make things happen. Organizations still need passion and energy and a vision, and that hasn't changed. And this, by the way, is one of the things that Steve Denning has confirmed with his leadership consortium. You know, having companies visit one another to find out what works and what doesn't as they're striving to become agile. There's still a role for leadership. People have been complaining about how difficult it is to make agile transitions work. My own research about enterprise change programs of any kind, 90% of them fail. If only 80% of our transitions fail, that means we're actually doing pretty good. But the key thing here is, how do you build alignment? Well, Simon Sinek said start with why. The answer to why is what really matters. Okay, so when we heard examples today. I can give you examples from Spotify. The way you get alignment is making sure everybody in your organization knows what really matters so that they can prioritize and make decisions about what really matters. So what is your job as a manager or as a leader? Well, at one level, it hasn't changed. You're still providing guidance and support. You're not solving the problem. You're not telling people what to do, but you still need to provide guidance. You still need to provide support. But the last thing is, and this is kind of what Scrum pioneered, is you also need to know when to step back and let your people solve the problems. The final point is, change is really easy to do if you want to do it. Okay, we saw this morning the Kubler-Ross model of the grief. That applies to change which is commanded, which is imposed upon you. You know, you've learned about, you've got cancer or some horrible disease and you're going to have to deal with that, and that's pretty shocking. Okay, but if you say, hey, I want to do this change, it's already much easier. And if you can pass that excitement on to your people so they see their future in your idea, all of a sudden it's their idea and they'll make the change happen for you. So how does this change your mission? Okay, you're no longer telling people what to do. We've got this traditional structure based around command and control. You figure out what's supposed to happen, you get them to do it. We're replacing that with a new culture. That culture is now based on trust and transparency and rapid feedback. Okay? These new shared values, we call that a mindset. Okay? And what you're trying to do is activate the intelligence in the room. Now remember, we said we've got two goals. One is the product that you're building, the other is the organization. My old advice was to start on a product, kind of get your feet wet with agility, building a product, and then take it to the leadership as quickly as possible. Today, I would reverse that order. I would start with the leadership first. So start with yourself. Start with your leadership's ability to create a high-performance organization. You might not actually do Scrum operationally. The transition that I'm guiding, they weren't sure if they were going to do Scrum in the projects or not. It works for some, but not for others. Okay? But their organization is committed to becoming a better organization quickly. Having said that, once you've got the organization, once you've kind of got the commitment to say, okay, let's make the organization a better place, probably you're going to start experimenting with Scrum or other agile frameworks at the production level. Some of them are going to work better from others. We've heard about lots of alternatives to Scrum. I'm not saying you're going to have to do Scrum, but the basic skill of a team is to get things done. And your job as a manager, as a leader, is to help them be able to get things done quickly and effectively. Okay? And then as you move forward, well, you're going to get better at getting the right things done. So the basic skill is to get things done. Then you got to get the right things done. How do you know what that is? Well, this brings us back to the alignment problem. Figuring out what really matters to your customers, creating alignment between what you offer and what your customers want to buy. Okay, with that, I would like to say thank you very much. If you're curious about this, I have a white paper. I think my time is up. I thank you for yours.